Welcome to Pioneer Mindset, a place where we challenge our mindset and address the discomfort in both business and life by finding clarity resulting in bold conviction. I'm your host, Garrett Ruskamp, fifth-generation farmer, husband, and father from rural Nebraska. Whether you're navigating frustration from past decisions or worry about the uncertainty you face today in your business, we're going to learn from our struggles and take on new challenges with a resilient mindset. Join me as I share my journey of struggles I've faced in agriculture as a farmer and family man. I'm ready to dive into honest conversations to tackle the mindsets surrounding key issues that rural ag business owners face that will ultimately help you gain control, leading to a profitable and sustainable business. Let's adapt to Pioneer Mindset and get to it. Welcome back, everyone, to Pioneer Mindset. For this week's episode, I'm really excited because it's going to be another guest episode, and we've got a good friend of mine on here today, Josh Pretzer from Kansas, and I'll let him introduce himself in a minute. But Josh and I have really become pretty good friends over the last year, getting to know each other through his company, Singular Agronomics. And so I'm really excited for this episode to really dive into farming from different standpoints from a business owner. Dealing with a family, there's obviously a lot of things that we can dive into there. But without further ado, Josh, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here.
Garrett, I appreciate it. I'm glad that it's spring and schedules are slammed on all farms everywhere. And I'm glad that we were able to make this work. I really am. I was really excited when you launched the Pioneer podcast because it's a perspective that's becoming a more common conversation in agriculture. The topics that you talk about, it's very relatable. It's very relatable. We did a podcast, the Protect Our Farm series, and man, it's just younger guys living through life, married, kids, etc. Maybe not, but still going through life with real challenges, that make us question what we're doing. And so I really appreciate your perspective on this as well. And so I'm excited for the conversation. We're both pretty passionate about the same mindset, the train of thought behind preserving the longevity of the farm through, work, relationships, and finances.
Absolutely. And I think that's really great that you touched on that. And I'll maybe dive into that here in a little bit. As far as, I feel like our generation is the one that, maybe this is just because we're living it, but I'm sure it's been in the same with past generations. But I feel like we're the ones that are really hyper aware of everything that's going on and how we can change our trajectory moving forward. And so that's a whole nother episode in itself, probably, and we can maybe hit on that in here a little bit. But before we do, give the listeners maybe some context, like I said, who you are, what you do, where you're from, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. So I'm from East Central Kansas, not too far from Emporia, Kansas. Fifth generation farmer. Anyway, married. I'm in my early 30s, couple of kids. My dad is pretty much retired. He helps in areas that are extremely beneficial. Like he helps me in ways that it's little stuff that is also so big. Like I'll have a Honda engine on a spray trailer go down. And he's like, no, I can fix it here. Hang on, and he'll tear into it. And 30 minutes later, call me and it's going again. Or we still do have cattle, and that's kind of his hobby retirement project. And so he still feeds the cows, and he'll come drive a truck for me a little bit during harvest. But anyway, and so, yeah, row crop, corn, beans, wheat, some cover crops when it fits into the rotation and the plan and finances, etc. I owned a guiding and outfitting business for 13 years. I started that when I was 17, and I wanted to buy my first piece of ground, and that was an opportunity that I was like, this might be something that could help cash flow the purchase of a piece of property, and built an outfitting business. In 2023 was my last year doing that. I told myself when I started, when it gets to where it's more work than it is fun, I'm going to let it go. And I decided to let it go. And dude, I met some absolutely incredible people through that. Some of the most influential people in my life I met through that business. And so I got to go to Alaska for a couple of months because of people I met through guiding. I got to learn the skill. It's an acquired skill of being an accommodatable host, and just that was really, I didn't realize it then, but that was the early stages of learning how to run a business. The, money, preparation, follow through, etc., people skills. That's a little bit of a snippet that a lot of people don't know about my life, but it was a very crucial one. And I decided to go ahead and retire from that because, the kids I was gone. I'm already gone more than I want. And so it became down to a matter of what is the least profitable, the most amount of work, and something that I'm, okay with letting go with, and in a combination, and that was the guiding business. So that's a little backstory on that. And so I did decide to let that go. Very thankful for that opportunity in life. So yeah, and then how deep do you want me to go on the backstory?
Hey, you're doing great because I didn't even know about the whole outfitting business. So that's news to me. I learn something every day. So keep going.
Yeah, so I've always been fascinated with the medical world, and that's where I was planning on going with my life. I'm still involved in it to a small degree. I have friends that pursued that career and stay very much in touch with them. And that's where I was going in life, was planning to go in life. And my dad hit an overhead power line with our sprayer. I think it was March 28th. It's just popped up on my Facebook feed. March 28th. Let's see, I'm 30. I'm about to be 32. I was 17. No, I was 18. So do the math, whatever that is. 14 years ago almost. Anyway, so dad hit an overhead power line. I was feeding cattle. Neighbor stopped, runs back and gets me, come back. And it actually happened in our farmyard. So that's, if you have an overhead power line in your farmyard and you own a sprayer, I have been an advocate about this for over a decade now. Bury that power line, no matter the cost. And so dad is laying under the sprayer and unconscious. And so we got under there and pulled him out, not even realizing the boom was still caught in the power line. And don't ask me how we didn't notice that. It was just a panic type moment, got dad out. And we were running Apache sprayers. And so there's probably 4 foot of clearance. So it would make sense to grab onto something as you're pulling someone out. Neither of us touched the sprayer. That's a God thing. That is absolutely a God. Dude, there are so many God things. We pulled dad out, drug him away from the sprayer. And it was about a minute later, the back belting, the electricity running through the belting and the tire, it got so hot and it blew up. Anyway, and so of course, ambulances show up, fire, the power company, police. Dude, there was more sirens and flashing lights at our place than I knew was even in eastern Kansas. But people got there, the emergency response people got there. One of them was a good friend of dad's. And of course, asked, Charles, are you okay? Who are you? Do you know your name? This and that. And he's like, Mark, what are you doing here? And that was kind of the first part of, they knew he was okay. Or they knew he at least knew his surroundings. And anyway, that, and then he had 3rd-degree burns, all over him. It was pretty bad. But they cut his leather belt off, a pair of shears, and of course cut his pants off and all, because you can't pull those things off when it's a burn situation, because a lot of his clothes are actually melted to him. The part where Mark turned to me and goes, okay, he has a chance of living, is when dad exploded from being so pissed that they cut his belt. He was really mad. But they rushed him to Via Christi St. Francis in Wichita. He was in the burn ward for a month, skin grafts, organ failure, all kinds of stuff. And through a tremendously rough road, dad has come back from most of that. He's still got some side effects. Talking to him, you'd never know. You never know what happened. But he still goes down there to their annual burn picnic that they have, where it's a thing where a lot of people, the patients, go back and can see the doctors and nurses, people they met. Because, dude, when you're in a burn unit, you're usually there for a long time. And so you develop friendships and meet people and so on and so forth. But that's a whole other part. But yeah, anyway, and so it was pretty much that day. It was either I was going to take over the farm, or the farm was probably going to have to be sold. And, because dad was pretty much out of commission for 2 years for the most part. And so I'm like, okay, well, we're not losing the farm. And I was a hired hand at that time. I don't know many young guys at that stage in life who are seriously vested in the future of the farm. We're just hired hands. We get our paycheck. I was early stages of dating my wife at that time. So unashamedly, I was more interested in that than farming. I had my guide business. We got other interests. We're young guys, and that's what we do. And so I was like, okay. And so planning the pre-emerge program for herbicide, dad's always done it this way. And, dad was still accessible on the phone, but when dad's not there and he's always been there, it's almost like they died, but you can still call them. It was a very, very weird planting season, but we got through it. And I had a couple of neighbors that were so helpful in so many ways, helped get the cattle worked and turned out to grass. And, they helped me with some spraying and things like that. So that was a very unique time in life. And then, man, it was just a matter of woke up and here I am today in my 30s, married with a family and still farming. But the dad came back and there was, man, that was tough because, I don't want to share too much of his personal side, but and my dad's 6'3", 230, 240 pounds. The epitome of a man. There is nothing this guy can't do. And so he went from that to having to have help to go to the bathroom. And he'll talk about the emotional and the mental struggle of that in his life in that transition. But that's his story. But that's really when the farm succession planning happened at literally the flip of a switch. And so then dad came back and was, fundamental in the farm for a few more years. And anyway, and then we did start our farm transition on the legal side. And dad and mom are, for the most part, retired. And Sam and I run the operation. But I still very much value dad as a, quote, business partner still. It's important and my dad's in his 70s, it's important to give that older generation purpose, I would say. I would say that the term is purpose to still include them because they do bring great value to the future and decision makings today, because that's a resource that I wish more young people would tap into, is talking to that older generation. And I think it was the Farm for Profit podcast. It might have been a different one where they're talking that generation made their money by working harder. Their problems were solved by sheer effort expended. And I'm not saying that you can't do that today, but the world is an ever-changing place, and it's changed to the point where if you are not good with a pencil, if you are not good with relationships, if you are not, my dad used to not talk to his landlords more than once or twice a year, maybe. And both sides were okay with that. It was just dad did the work and they owned the ground, and that was that. Here's a check at harvest, and that's life. And now, I like to talk to people. Obviously, I've talked most of this podcast already. Everybody tells me it's one of my greatest downfalls. But I value the relationship side and bringing people into that. The landlords, I want them to feel like that they're more connected, so that when we go to negotiate rent or an agreement or something, they have a big picture of this thing. And they're, more like, oh, okay, $4 corn right now really doesn't pencil very well, and so it's funny because I have a landowner in his late 70s, and he always remarks on how fancy my combine is. Okay. My combine's a 2013, so it's by no means new. It's not classified as old, but this thing's, it's got 2,000 separator hours on it. But to him, it's a monstrosity of a machine. And he just talks about how crazy that big of a piece of equipment is. This is a guy that harvested corn with a 2-row pull type combine, So in his brain, and he did that, and then he left the farm and had a 40-some year career doing something in the professional world. So there was very much a disconnect in agriculture where he didn't see the progression of that. And so he's one that probably bumps that conversation of wanting more money from his side of things. But I don't know, just sitting down with him and showing him, a cash flow perspective, just on a per acre basis. It's not his business for him to know everything in my filing cabinet. But it's like, hey, man, let's sit down. Let's look at some bids I got on nitrogen, on herbicide. This is my seed bill. This is why we plant this population. This is, fuel costs, service costs. This is what my repair bill this winter costs in my combine is, $24,000 or whatever when I send it into the mechanic. It's like, let's break all this down. What is our crop insurance yield? What or guarantee? And I talked to him, do you agree that a safe benchmark is the crop insurance guarantee? And he said, yes, it's the only thing we can bank on. Perfect. That really helps this conversation move forward. I'm like, so anything over that, can that be expected or is that hopeful? He said, well, that's only hopeful. Like, okay. I said, in your professional career, how much of your business decisions were based off of a hope? And he's like, I made some, but I regretted most of them. And so I'm like, okay, so let's use this dollar as a baseline here and run the projections. So it's like, okay, if our bushel guarantee on his ground and the history and the crop insurance and everything, say it's 100 bushel an acre at 70% coverage or 75% coverage. We're, 130 to 140 bushel corn here where we're at. We're all dry land. That's very respectable yield. I mean, you get a lot of guys that hit 140 bushel corn and they're very, very happy about that because we were 119 degrees. Was it last summer or 2 summers ago? And then we'll get snow in May. So, we're very volatile weather climate. But just walking him through that on a per acre basis, because that's not giving up sensitive information. That's giving up information he could gather if he went and just did a lot of the digging on his own. And so it really helped him realize that, hey, this is your quote profit, assuming, that we're going off of just crop insurance and anything else. And it really helped bring him back to, and by the way, I had him price a new combine. He's a numbers guy. And so I said, hey, here's the name of my salesman. Call him and I want you to price a new combine, a planter, and a tractor and a sprayer. All of those. And I want you to come back to me and tell me how cash flow works on a farming operation. I was like, you have a new pickup outside. So, don't hate on me for having a new. Now, I don't run brand new equipment. But, so he likes new things. He likes, shiny stuff. He likes that. And so that kind of actually clicked for him. It doesn't click for everyone, but he goes, okay, I have a new pickup. I'll price a new tractor. And then he sees the cash flow projections behind it. And he goes, that doesn't work. And I go, okay. So respectfully, when you come to me wanting an increase on your side, I'm not going to say that that's not possible. I'm just going to put numbers down to you and ask you for an unbiased perspective as much as you can so that you can see where I'm coming from on this. Maybe rent or a crop share agreement does need to be adjusted in the landowner's favor. I'm not saying that there's never a case for that because all you hear from farmers is my landowner wants too much rent. And all you hear from, that's what you hear from farmers. And all you hear from the landowners is the farmers are making so much money. And so there is an extreme disconnect there between the farmer and I think that's a byproduct of farmers not having relationships with their landowners. In fact, I know it is. I know for a fact that it is, at least in my case. And man, there are good landowners and there are very poor landowners out there. There's the ones that they do not value upkeep. They do not value farming practices. They want to drive by, see something growing, and they want the max dollar per acre. But you also have people who care about the longevity of their investment, the longevity of relationship with their farming tenant, and so on and so forth. And if you can prove yourself to be a good business partner, because that's what a farmer and the landowner are. They are a business partnership. Take land and equipment out of it. That is what it is. And so I wish a lot more farmers looked at that from that perspective. I wish they would look at it as take farming out. Would I do business with this person? And I think it would make a lot of people second guess their decision to do business with that person because, man, there's pieces of ground. And I say this, I hope it doesn't come across as, as an egotistical thing. There are pieces of ground I have decided in the past not to farm because of the landowner himself. Like, I'm sorry, it might be great producing ground, but the amount of stress added to my life just because of that person I had one guy, he wanted to rent me his ground so that he could turn around and have hunting permission on all of my land. Like that was the deciding factor here. And I'm like, dude, I hunt and I run a guide business and it helps pay my land mortgages. And he's like, too bad, this is it. He's like, you can farm my ground if I get hunting permission on all your ground. And dude, that's only one underlying issue, really. If he's going to be that way, how's he going to be when it comes time to pay an invoice on something? He's going to look at it and be like, well, and he has several farms that has different tenants on it. So, well, this other tenant, he bought his Roundup for $14.95 a gallon and not, $15.26. So why are you charging me? I mean, it's just things like that, man. And it's just like, dude, this is not worth it. This is not worth it. But I don't know. It depends on the farmer's tolerance for tolerating relationships of that nature. Some guys can put up with it. He has a farmer right now that puts up with it. This farmer gets steamrolled absolutely unconditionally on so many instances, but he puts up with it. So to each his own.
Absolutely. I'll be honest, I don't know why I'm here. I'm just going to let you take this away for the rest of the episode. I mean, you hit on so many points there. I could dive into like 10 different episodes. And so that was great. And ultimately, I wanted to make the comment on, you said sometimes you feel like people say you're talking, your enthusiasm maybe, or just your outgoingness is a downfall. And I would be 100% against that. I think that is absolutely a strength. And I feel like that's a lot of where I know I personally don't excel in that because I'm more of an introvert at heart. That's why it's easier to talk through a screen or talk into a microphone sometimes. So, I just wanted to comment on that. And I think at the end of the day, you made a lot of comments there, a lot of good things to hit on, but the connections with the people, going back to that outfitting business, like I said, I didn't even know you had that. And I think that's ultimately, like I said, the connections with the people to run the business side of things. I was thinking about this the other day. I feel like if you truly want to manage profit, you need to learn to manage people. And that's something that most people do not excel in. And I'm guilty of it myself as well.
One of my greatest life mentors told me, he said, you'll never have to worry about money if you worry about the people. And I asked him, I was like, how do you mean by that? He said, if you worry about serving the people, you will not have to worry about the money. And dude, it's true. Find me a business that does a great job that is on the verge of bankruptcy. It's not very easy. I mean, might be farms that are in that situation, but in the day-to-day world, find me a business, find me a home builder, find me an electrician, find me a dirt work guy. I mean, the list goes on. Find me guys. And we all know, I mean, when I started saying things like that, names start popping up in people's minds of people they know that are very good at what they do. My brother's a home builder. He owns a construction company in Manhattan, very successful. And dude, people flock to him. One, he's an absurdly entertaining individual. And I swear that is a large part of it. People gravitate to him because of the comfort they feel in his presence. But at the same time, he is more expensive than everyone else. Okay? That is not a secret of his. But when Levi says he's going to do something, Levi does something. And it's a matter of, I'll tell this little story. It's hilarious, but it has brought value to several conversations I have had with guys. My brother was approached by a group that he does a lot of work for. And they said, Levi, we need you to do drywall. We've got this big complex that we're finishing out. And we need someone to do drywall. The guys we normally do can't do drywall right now. And we need this finished in like the next 30 days. Levi's like, I don't do drywall. My brother hates drywall. Okay. He hates drywall. He's like, we don't do drywall. He's like, I don't really want my guys doing that. It's hard work. It's not that he's against hard work, man. Drywall is, it's laborious. It's very tough on the human body. And so they go, name your price. We need it done. Levi goes, what did they bid you? And it was like $1.60 or something a square foot is what their bid was. And Levi goes, I don't do drywall. And they go, that's not an option. We need you to do drywall. Levi said $5 a square foot. They said, can you have it done in 30 days? Levi goes, I guess I can now. and so Levi hung up the phone and he turned to his guys. He goes, boys, I guess we're going to do drywall. Everybody's getting a raise. And you know what? He used that money to give guys the raise. And boom. And he grew his business with that. And he kind of got his niche from people wanted something done in a very timely manner and very high end, like high end. He's done some extremely detailed, fancy building stuff. And someone will buy a house and mama wants the kitchen painted. She wants a new bay window put in. She wants like all this stuff done. And we're moving in 40 days. Levi's the one that gets the call, but people can rely on that. And if you can make yourself reliable and do quality work, it's incredible the opportunities that do arise in life, and not being afraid to put yourself out there. I think too many guys are too afraid to put themselves out there for the worry of failure. And yeah, man, the comment section's mean. The comment section is it's a tough place. So don't be there. I actually heard this on a podcast yesterday. Have you ever had one of your supporters contact you through the comments? I haven't. I don't think I ever have, because man, we're on with Singular side. We're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the list goes on. And man, some of the comments are absolutely atrocious, like absurd. And Joe Rogan says, you got to quit reading the comments. It's easier said than done. But man, once you can learn to literally not give a crap, it will help launch your business so much further, because time that you were using in reading comments and wasted energy processing negativity is now you have reallocated to something better. And it's probably the most powerful tool in a business owner's toolbox is reallocation of wasted time to profitable and impactful time.
Absolutely. There again, I could dive off on that one and have a whole nother episode. Well, everyone, that's the end of the first part of this 2-part series with Josh Pretzer. Stay tuned next week as we dive back into this valuable conversation. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for tagging along with me today as we sharpened our mindsets. If you've gained insight from today's episode, be sure to take a screenshot to share or send this episode to somebody who might also find value in it. For more, follow me on Instagram @GarrettRuskamp or on Facebook, and join me next time for more conviction through clarity.